This is Asheville, North Carolina, a relatively small, charming and unique city, but a major Appalachian destination. See, Asheville is located in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and it immensely benefits from the kind of traffic that goes along with America's most popular national park. Those Blue Ridges are a physiographic province of America's oldest mountain range, the Appalachian Mountains, which stretch across the eastern United States from North Alabama all the way up to Canada, forming the Appalachian region, known for being rich in history and culture but little else.
Southeast Ohio has been plagued with poverty for decades.
Every grocery store, mom-pop stores, it impacts everything.
One job in the mine is equal to about 7 outside of it.
It's already been destroyed. It couldn't destroy much anymore.
The best-known states in Appalachia are Kentucky, Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Tennessee, with the third largest city sitting over in Tennessee, just 116 miles from Asheville. But that city, Knoxville, is also just the third biggest city in the state of Tennessee, with a population of less than 200,000 residents. So it may seem a little odd that the third largest city in a region that spans 13 different states and 2 countries is so small. Sure, metropolitan Knoxville has a population nearing 800,000 residents, and Knoxville serves as the primary economic hub for eastern Tennessee. However, it's still fairly limited for being the third largest city of an entire American region with more than 25 million residents. But when you hear about Appalachia, I doubt you're thinking about cities like Asheville or Knoxville anyway. Probably not even the region's biggest cities of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Huntsville, Alabama, Scranton, Greenville, Chattanooga, Charleston, Erie. No, the Appalachian narrative centers mostly around this small area, known for its poor institutions, economic decline, and decaying infrastructure. To explain why, that is why nobody cares about Appalachia, we first need to look at how the region is a lot more than just its most challenged core, and how negative generalizations about Appalachia may or may not be overstated in general. When you look at the Appalachian region on the whole, it had a 2021 median household income of $56,000, about 15% less than the US median income of $69,000 for that year. While the rate of regional poverty there sits about 24% above the national average at 14.5%, so Appalachia is struggling more than other parts of the United States, with less income per family and more poverty overall. But when you break the numbers down further by subregion, you can see that Northern Appalachia has a poverty rate of just 13.1%, while poverty is higher in North Central Appalachia with a rate of 16.2%, and poverty is critically high in Central Appalachia in excess of 22%. South Central poverty is lower at 14.7%, and Southern Appalachia has an even lower rate of 13.5%, meaning that poverty is generally widespread and elevated, but it isn't equal. And Central Appalachia, which lies at the core of the region, with greater distance from urban areas and stronger dependence on rural income sources, is suffering the worst of the region's economic strain, while other portions of the region, especially the areas with metropolitan proximity, are faring much better. That's important, because well over half of Appalachia's 26.1 million residents live in urbanized areas, and cities like Huntsville, Alabama and Greensville, South Carolina have been thriving in recent years through a renaissance of modern manufacturing and booming population growth, while Atlanta, which lies just outside of Appalachia, has had a significant impact on its southern stretch in general. Oh, and Pittsburgh, the region's biggest city, with a metropolitan population of 2.5 million residents, is emerging as one of the nation's fastest growing technology hubs, with companies like Google, Facebook, Apple, and Amazon investing hundreds of millions of dollars into a city once known for steel and iron. So at this point, I think it's clear that Appalachian demographics and economics are just as diverse as the region's uniquely ancient topography. But while cities like Asheville and Knoxville are growing along with their respective states, Central Appalachia, which is located mostly in eastern Kentucky and western West Virginia, isn't, as the region's center stands out as its most problematic and stagnant area. That's to say Central Appalachia is Appalachia's Appalachia, as it suffers from the worst of the region's downward economic pressure. But is it really, as some people call it, backwards? Or is it simply struggling, much like rural America is in general? Well, the kind of isolation and depopulation happening in Central Appalachia is something different, and it contrasts starkly with the area's epic growth in the early to mid-1900s. But even back when the territory was thriving, I wouldn't say it was doing well. See, Central Appalachia is located in the heart of the Alleghenies and the Blue Ridge, so it has a vast wealth of natural resources, but its rugged terrain makes proper city building almost impossible. That's how the coal mining industry came to dominate the area, as corporations and politicians took advantage of the people living there, exploiting Appalachian society with extremely low wages and unfair land purchases, and its environment with the most destructive forms of resource extraction, such as mountaintop removal, ravishing eastern Kentucky and especially western West Virginia for decades, and making Central Appalachia the most devastated portion of an already devastated region, ultimately only contributing further to the area's poor environmental standards, poverty, and population collapse, while compounding years of difficult circumstances for the Appalachian core in pretty much every way imaginable, with regional issues like poor education, unemployment, lost land resource rights, and deteriorating infrastructure there being amplified significantly and specifically for Appalachia's core, to a point where it's difficult to say where this loop of doom really even started. But it all started with Appalachia's complicated geography, as the region was built on a major mountain range that stretches more than 2,000 miles across the eastern United States. Of course, the Appalachian Mountains aren't just some hurdle. I mean, they are a literal physical hurdle across the eastern United States, but when you look at the states that surround the Rocky Mountains out in the American West, they have had some of the nation's greatest growth and prosperity in recent years, with Utah and Colorado being two of the nation's highest-ranking growth states. And like I was saying before, much of Appalachia is doing very well in its own right, especially since the turn of the century. However, I should add that the most successful places aren't really all that associated with Appalachia anyway. That's especially true in the southern and northern portions of the region, in the areas surrounding Atlanta and Pittsburgh. Though South Central Appalachia, which is at the core of the region's entire tourism industry, has grown not in spite of it, but because of it. With the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, again America's most visited national park, being located between Knoxville, Tennessee and Asheville, North Carolina, and attracting 12.9 million visitors last year while creating major economic opportunities, not just for the South Central Appalachian cities of Knoxville and Asheville, but also for the smaller towns that surround them like Sevierville, Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, Bryson City, and Cherokee. Because while Appalachia is often generalized for its struggling core, the region itself, on the whole, is at least as diverse, expansive, and wondrous as anywhere else in the United States, with some parts thriving and others just turning the corner, while a few struggle through the kind of uphill battle that makes it difficult to even have hope. But from the Catskills in southern New York to the Red Mountain Ridge in Alabama, Appalachia has some of America's most awe-inspiring natural geography, surrounded by cities, towns, and communities that are looking to build a better future in a place where things are a little more quiet and a little less complicated.